Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I am your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a very, very accomplished leader from Portland, Oregon, USA, Ekaterina Walter. Ekaterina, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Ekaterina is the Senior Director Marketing of Zinc 5 Incorporated. She's been globally recognized as a business and marketing innovator. She's an international speaker. She's an author, and I'm sure all of you know by now that I'm very partial to authors. So she's an author of a book titled Think Like a Zuck. I hope I have the pronunciation right. She's also the co-author of The Power of Visual Storytelling and the Laws of Brand Storytelling. So, Ekaterina, you're very passionate about the work you do. Tell me a little bit about it.
Thank you, Ash. Yes, I am. I'm super passionate about it. I basically tell people, listen, I'm a marketer, but there's a lot of different angles of marketing, and I tried it all. And what I'm super passionate about, especially, is storytelling, and specifically in digital format or in this digital age, right? This becomes very important. So, hence my books on storytelling there. But yeah, I'm just a marketer who tried a lot of innovative things, both on Fortune 500 companies as well as startups. And I consider myself an entrepreneur because there's a lot of new things coming up every time, every day, and there's a lot of new ways we can approach our work.
Wow. So today we're going to talk primarily about branding and marketing and your books. When I was reading about you, it took me back to my life as a marketer 4 decades ago. And I was able to relate on advertising with this very popular web series called Mad Men. How has branding and communication changed over the years?
That's a very good question. Significantly, Ash, right? It's now a two-way conversation. It used to be that it's all about one-way broadcast, right? And now it's all about building communities, which is the fun part, the most amazing part. I mean, there's always cons and pros to different approach, but right now it is all about a conversation versus one-way broadcast, right? Mad Men, they are all about putting out an advertisement that really, hopefully, emotionally connects, or explains the product to you. Now it is a discussion, and not only that, it's relationship building with the variety of parties, right? Not just with your customers and your prospects, but with your partners, with your ecosystem, with your employees. It moved away from broadcasting to creating experiences, whether it's customer experiences or employee experiences, and that's what people, especially young generation, right, expect from companies and brands right now.
Fascinating. And you were just mentioning that you have worked on marketing strategy for Fortune 500 companies and startups. So I just have to ask you this question: what goes into building a successful brand?
It is a loaded question. I think one of the things that has changed, if you look at the chart, right, Fortune 500 companies, how long have they stayed, and how long were they really a Fortune 500 companies, right? Now, the number, it used to be hundreds of years, and now the numbers have shrunk, right? Correct. It is harder now to maintain a successful brand long term. And I think the reality is that there's more expectations of us as companies, as brands, not just our products. It's a multi-angle, multifaceted, multi-channel sort of conversation, community building, right, around the brand that really is now rooted in values of the company, in transparency of the company, in communities and conversations the company sparks.
Mm.
No, we're moving away from this PR stance of, no, we're not talking about this topics, or no, we're not addressing this particular conversations. We're just going to let it burn out and die out. We are now we're now working the age where you have to stand for something. And, as a marketer, right, there's way more goes into building a successful brand. But as a marketer, you don't just create, advertisement and marketing campaigns. You have to start and spark movements. You have to make sure that your customers believe in who you are, why you're here, in your mission. And that will lead to them buying the product, which also, by the way, includes how you treat your employees, because that becomes super visible. We think it's not, our culture is not a visible element, and yet it is.
Very well said. Very well said. And, based on my own experience of having worked with brands, I've often said brands are living beings. They're like children. They need constant investment of time, effort, and resources. What is it that makes some brands last 100 years and some die in a few years? What is it that makes them, successful or relevant for a long period of time?
This, again, another loaded question, right? But I think, interestingly, that is the question that led myself and my co-author, Jessica Jola, to write our latest book, which is, the laws of brand storytelling, because the laws have changed, right? And I think if you really look at the brand, a brand now is the sum of all interactions, real and perceived, that a person has with the company across all touch points. So your brand identity, like you mentioned before, right? You just said the brand identity isn't fixed, it's fluid. If you stay true to who you are, your mission, and everything that you do, you have a chance to build on it, right? Consistently with your everyday stories, and for strengthening your brand in the process. But because one of the things we tend to forget sometimes is, in the age of empowered consumer, your brand is not what you say it is.
Correct.
It used to be, not anymore. It's what they say it is. And, and then extension of that is, we talk about brand storytelling. That is the art of shaping a company's identity through the use of narratives and storytelling techniques that facilitate an emotional response and maybe establish meaningful connections. And yes, a lot of people will say, well, oh my gosh, customers just want to buy your product and they want that product to work. It's not about relationships. There's maybe some angle and some truth to that, but the longevity of a company and of a brand all depends on that connection the customer makes with you and what you stand for anymore, right? So I think that's my take as a marketer. Yeah,
that's a great response. And now I'm going to ask you another twist in this whole, from a marketer or a brand person's perspective, and that is this whole advent of digital media and social media, where communication is moving in the speed of nanoseconds. How do brands stay relevant in a digital world?
It's gosh, I always say that we live in the age of infobicity, right? There is so much out there. There's so much content. There's so much discussions. There's many communities people can join or be part of. I think in the age of infobicity, what becomes important is that, how do you tell your story quickly, right? So visual storytelling is really because of the sort of the newsfeed mentality. Everything's fast. You wanna catch something and then you want to move on, right? The attention span every year shortens more and more. And so in the age of infobicity, I think visual storytelling has emerged as I would say, very powerful strategy to help marketers and brands stand above the noise. I mean, think about it. Visuals, humans process visuals 60,000 times faster than text.
Wow.
Right? And probably about 70% of people, if they see a visual versus text, they remember it. 3 days later versus 10% who remember it if it's written, right? And that's because we're very naturally, that's human nature. So when you look at the digital world, what started happening is this introduction of the newsfeed with social media, an introduction of a quick visual snippets, right? I call it snackable content. We need to start shifting our mentality to what I call, my mantra is tell, don't sell, right? It's one, make it visual, make it quick to grasp, make it snackable, but two, make it useful. Utility. It's a utilitarian marketing is an underrated term and approach, but it works. Everything you do, stop selling, provide value. And as people start trusting you and your expertise, they will absolutely buy from you. But it does take investment. It does take thoughtful approach. It does take courage and in some sense, right? So that's what I think now. That's where we are with the digital world. And then there's also this additional element, Ash, about customer experience is the new marketing. Correct. Right? So not only you got to grab their attention, but once you have those customers, you have to keep them, because customer retention is the one that is the one number that will grow your business. And so you keep customers with you through customer experience and ensuring that every touch point and every interaction they have with you makes sense, easy, useful, utilitarian, as well as meaningful. So.
Amazing. And your response, a great response, gives me a segue to my next question, which is on communication. One of the biggest challenges that most brand managers or most marketers face is, how do I communicate to my customers? 4 decades ago, it used to be full page ads in newspapers. It was big billboards that evolved into movie 3-minute films, etc., etc. Today, everything is on handheld devices, and the duration is shrinking dramatically. I'd love to get your perspective on how are people learning to say something more relevant in a shorter time.
Yeah, I mean, right. Again, going back to sort of snackable, more visual content. That's sort of. I think it takes a certain amount of art, right? You got to be an artist. You have to rethink creatively what will now grab the attention of your audiences. What are the tools available, and how are you using different channels in a creative way, right? That's basically what you need to think about. But you know what? I will say that you probably expect a response that focused around marketing, right? Or around a branding. I will actually flip it over. I will tell you that some of the most innovative companies really do fantastic, sometimes very simple, very easy, very much not requiring a budget type of approaches. They do it because they hire the best talent, the most creative people. Correct. And those cultures, they hire talent not for skills. In my first book, I talk about there's 5 P's, and one of the P's for growing and for growing innovative business and having that business succeed is people. And so I say hire for attitude, because skills can be taught, but passion can't. And I will tell you, some of the brands currently that do amazing jobs are brands like Wendy's, who hired the misfits and the most, and part-time comedians to manage their social communities, and people can't have enough. People love the brand and they like the product, but they stay for entertainment. They stay for those interactions with people that the team hired, right? And they didn't hire. They didn't hire for resume. You have, as a company, you have to look at everything you do, including, do you build the culture where most creative, entrepreneurial people want to work, or do you not? The other thing I think companies do to really to be different is, especially on the mobile device, right? Is they take an approach, your people are your brand, and they are opening the doors for their employees to advocate on the company's behalf, because the content that brands employees put out there is engaged with 8 to 10 times more than with the brand itself, right? And so what you want to stop being afraid, and you want to realize that each of your employees, your brand's face, each of them is your brand ambassador. They are your best marketers, right? Zappos has done it first, and they've done it best. And so since then, companies started to sort of extend their policies, but look beyond just hire the talent that's different, right? Bring diversity in to help you stand out in those mobile feeds, and or make sure you allow your own people to shine, to be creative, and to be present out there digitally. That is how you win the attention war right now, whether it's mobile device or desktop. So
what a great response. And yet, when you talk about winning the attention war, now you have lesser and lesser time. And I was speaking to some other people, some senior agency people, and they're saying now they get 7 seconds. I was asking them, how do you communicate the attributes of a product or a brand in 7 seconds? And you, as a marketing guru, I'd love to get your thoughts.
You grab attention with a spark of content that's relevant to you and aligns with your values, aligns with your brand, and then you bring them to another location, right? Okay. You get their attention, and then you drive them to either the website or a product video or another fun video, a piece of content that is not just necessarily fun, entertaining, but utilitarian too. A lot of people will tell you, what if my product is boring? A lot of people say, and I say there's no such thing as boring. You would be surprised. There are some really niche, passionate communities out there around products that you would think, how am I going to market this? It's not sexy, like it's not marketable, right? And so I think to answer your question is that spark of relatability or being helpful, again, utilitarian, either or. That brings them back to your properties. And that's another thing you got to consider, right? Is a lot of people put a lot of money into third party forums and sites such as social media channels, right? But you need to go back to the basics, and you need to realize that it's just rented land. And so however you bring those people in, you got to bring them back to your site to talk to you about the company or the products or campaigns, right? So it's just, I think it's like just adjusting your go-to-market strategy and adjusting your omni-channel content strategy mix so that you can take advantage of this couple of second attention span and then engage them further.
Well said. So one more question before I move to your books. I'd love to get your thoughts on how is technology changing the way marketers are thinking now?
In a pretty big way. There is an innovative element. Let's take an example. A couple of years ago, right, LinkedIn piloted a live stream, and those people who were on there first got the biggest attention, got the biggest conversations. Clubhouse came along, and if you were on there first, people did pay attention, right? People did engage with you. Look at the tech around you and take advantage of the newest, hottest, most innovative features first and foremost, and see how it goes for your brand. And then you decide whether you want to adapt it or adopt it across the organization or not, and what works for you. Be careful not to spread yourself thin on that. Or, the technology right now really, truly, it's all about digital transformation. Right now, you look at chief marketing officers, they're basically turning into chief information, officers, chief technology officers, chief customer officers. Why customer? Because that whole experience requires technology to work together. And so one of the biggest gaps right now that companies have is not having that right digital transformation roadmap that would allow them to connect the dots between everything that they do, connect the dots between their system, and integrate them in the way that it looks like it's a seamless experience to your customer and to your partners and to your employees around you, right? And so when we talk about sort of technology, we talk about the importance of ensuring that you have the right tech, that not only that tech works for you from customer experience perspective and internal perspective. It provides you the right insights, it provides you the right data, it allows you to run real-time simulations and make real-time decisions. Your strategy shouldn't be fixed, right? Your strategy should be fluid, so you can change and adapt as you optimize across all of your channels, across all of your tactics. So,
what an amazing response. Thank you. Ekaterina, I'm now going to move to your other avatar as an author. And you have written books on branding, and you've written a book for your daughter.
That's right.
Tell me about both the different types of books that you have written.
My first book was on business innovation. It's one of my passions, and the publisher came in and said, could you write it, and could you use the companies that are growing and innovative right now, like Facebook, Dyson, and a lot of others, Zappos, et cetera, to talk about what does it take to build nowadays current modern digital business. And then my other two, first of the other two is on visual storytelling, just because, and it hit at a very perfect time, because everybody, not just marketers and designers, but everybody else in the world were trying to figure out how to take advantage of visual storytelling, how to create a strategy around it, and what are the tactics and tools and strategies and examples that they can draw from when it comes to that. So it was highly successful in the third book was an extension of the second one, because people said, great, you tackled the visual storytelling. Now tell us how do we look at brand storytelling as a whole? So, we wrote, Jessica and I co-wrote both of those books, visual storytelling, brand storytelling. And in the last one, we outlined 30 things and 30 laws that you sort of need to look at and remember, with a ton of amazing examples and tips that you can utilize. So those are my business books. And then my daughter, who's now 13, she was 8 at the time. We we tell each other stories. We come up with the stories, and we decided that we would like to co-publish one of those stories we came up with, and we created a children's book, and we published a children's book about the twin girls and the sisters who are nothing alike. They're different, and they go for adventures together and experience success, experience failure, and grow closer together because of that. So that was fun. We're probably going to do some other books as well, but
I think we're now running out of time. So I'm going to just ask you one last question. And that is that, what would you say are 3 key milestones or pivot points in your life or your career?
It's interesting. I don't look at my life as milestones. Okay. Obviously, I have a bucket list like everybody else, and there's always different ages, right? You go for different stages of life, and you learn how to pivot and learn. I will tell you though, no matter what you do, and no matter how much you pivot and how often you pivot, which will be required by the time you get to be my age, right? Ash, our age, right? We've pivoted so many times. But I will say that no matter what you do, I think you got to live a life with no regrets, right? I think when you look back at your life, not having a goal of contentment and not having regrets, and doing the things on your bucket list and trying out things that you want to try your hand in, right? Go for it. That's how I live my life, is no regrets. But throughout life, right, Ash, I will add that I think one of your mottos should be the rate of learning will equals the rate of earning, right? So you got to learn along the way. You got to learn to learn. new things, to unlearn old things, and
Correct.
to stay relevant. So that to me was always a very important thing, no matter which milestones I'm going, experiencing.
What an amazing response. Thank you. And on that note of live life with no regret, thank you, Ekaterina, for speaking to me. Thank you for talking to me at such length about branding, about your incredible journey as a marketer. Thank you for sharing some really very profound and deep thoughts on what goes into building a brand. And finally, thank you for talking to me about your books. I will go and check them out on Amazon, and I look forward to your new books as well. Thank you again, and good luck.
Thank you, Ash. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.